talk, Valentina.
Ally. Welcome to Black Stacks. Today we are discussing the transgender issue by Sean Fay. I hadn't expected to make a video for this book, so it's gonna look a little different. I have put together a PowerPoint presentation, so please enjoy. Written by a transgender woman, Sean Fay, the transgender issue is an extensive overview of trans politics in the West, more specifically the UK and the US. I could sum up the review in 2 words quite easily. Read this. Honestly, given the title and the description, I feel like, there's not much of a debate about it. I just feel like it's something you might want to read. But I would inform you that it is not an easy read. As a queer person of color, I'm very familiar with text in movies such as Black Pain movies, or just the numerous amount of queer movies that only depict queer people as like incredibly depressed and sad about the fact that simply they are gay. That I kind of thought that I was somewhat immune to such realities. But in reading this, I often found myself having to put the book down and go talk to my partner, or go for a walk, or just watch something pleasant like Craig of the Creek. It is no shocker to anyone that people of color and members of the LGBTQ+ community, especially those who are of color and in the LGBTQ+ community, ally, experience a variety of violence and rather often. But it is still very difficult for me, as one would imagine, to see how cruel human beings can be and the extent that they would go to prove a point, draw a line, and make people feel unwanted. A good example of this right now is how angry people are that Halle Bailey is playing a fictional mermaid who, frankly, can sing her ass off. I must clarify that the book is not riddled with atrocities. The book's primary focus is more on things such as the state, classism, healthcare, the British media, which is the trans community and its relationship with feminist movements. But the book does not shy away from subjects such as the prison system, sex work, transphobia within the LGBTQ+ community, which often results in great acts of violence, which often affect not only trans people, but people of color as a whole, and trans people of color disproportionately. But in sharing the trans experience, Faye lays out all the ways in which the systems that make up Western governments and societies work against the trans community. Between the introduction and the first chapter, we see how the British media, yes, the same British media that slandered Diana and Meghan, have maliciously attempted to shape and erase the voices of the trans community. I must point out the fact that this is not necessarily different in the US, but the British media is on a completely different wave. This, of course, lays deep into the conversation surrounding representation for under and misrepresented groups and peoples. The conversation of universal healthcare is extremely important for Americans to know, because that chapter is specifically focused more so on the UK, as the US does not have a universal healthcare system. And in the UK, not only is there a universal healthcare system, but there is a universal healthcare system that has, to my understanding, specific regions of it or sections of it devoted to trans people and the LGBTQ+ community. Ally. What is funny is that in this text, it is being criticized in the way that it's functioning and the weights that are included in sort of the lack of knowledge that some of these doctors have in regard to the communities that they're working with. But even in reading this critique, all of it was 1,000 times better than what is available here in the US. For American and EU citizens, the discussion of the state bears a lot of similarities as well as contrasts that we should be noting in our work as allies and voters alike. This includes our leadership. We are in a constant state of taking 2 steps forward and 3 steps back due to the framework and mindset of our conservative party. In discussion with capitalism, Faye questions what role capitalism plays within the social, political space, as well as the liberation of all under and misrepresented communities, especially between the LGBTQ+ community and the Black Lives Matter campaign. And frankly, this is something we all need to be looking into. The question of whether or not capitalism and its gay BB-8s are actually assisting in spreading awareness and extending representation, or are the Black Lives Matter and LGBTQ+ commands just the corporate crocs of today. Ally. Following in the steps of Angela Davis, Faye also brings into conversation the industrial prison complex. In this, we discuss the industrial prison complex as a whole, as well as its use of gender roles and how that affects the trans community. For those still unpacking prison abolition, this book is a wonderful place to start. The prison system is something that affects every last one of us every single day, and it is something that we all need to be actively evaluating globally, but especially those in the West. Lastly, Faye tackles two very important topics at which I feel are just now coming into the forefront of mainstream conversation. That being white women, traditional feminism, and homophobia, and transphobia, more specifically in the LGBTQ plus community. There is a common misconception that homophobia cannot exist in queer circles, and there is a common misconception that feminism automatically includes women of color as well as trans women. The work being done to dismantle both the misconceptions and the reality itself is just beginning, and this text is a great place to start. Faye also emphasizes the importance of distinction between the identities grouped into the LGBTQ plus label. Ally. It is important for us to note that there's a distinction in these circles as they all have different histories, and though it is often not intentional, lumping everyone under one abbreviation can very easily erase certain experiences. We must also keep this in mind when we discuss feminist work. 9 times out of 10, the work that we're doing as activists or allies or socially aware people is ultimately a part of a global fight where our liberation is intertwined and dependent on all of us. Ally. The transgender issue by Sean Faye is now available in the States. Please make it a priority. Also, please check out the rest of Verso's books, catalog, publications. They're an amazing publisher and they regularly pump out books that have these conversations. Yes. Okay. Read this book. Keep the books stacked.